Broncos country, get ready because the bomb just exploded in Denver. The tight end we were all expecting to see dominating the orange and blue field limped off after our victory against the Titans, and now the entire Denver Broncos family is in suspense about what this means for our season. What really happened to Evan Engram? Will our new secret weapon be available for Week 2? Stay tuned, because this situation is far from simple. What's up, everyone? If you're true Broncos country and want to stay on top of every play, every injury, and every move from our beloved team, this is the right place. Because when it comes to the Denver Broncos, there's no middle ground. You're either in or you're out. And I know you're in this family with me. Let's get straight to the point because this Engram situation is affecting everyone. Last Sunday, September 7th, our Broncos opened the season facing the Tennessee Titans at home at Mile High, and what a victory that was. But in the middle of all this euphoria, a shadow appeared to worry us. Evan Engram, our veteran tight end who arrived in Denver carrying huge expectations, started the game showing why he was signed. 3 receptions, 21 yards, moving the chains like we expected to. See? The guy was fitting perfectly into Sean Payton's offensive scheme, creating space, being that reliable safety valve every quarterback needs. But then, Broncos country, what nobody wanted to see happened. At the end of the game, Engram started limping. First, he went to the medical tent, came back to the field like a warrior trying to help the team, but the calf wasn't cooperating. The right calf injury started bothering him seriously, and he had to leave the field for good. Picture the scene. Our new tight end, who was supposed to be one of the key pieces of our renewed offense, limping off right in the first game of the medical staff running to evaluate, fans in the stadium holding their breath, and all of us here thinking, man, this can't be happening now. What worries us most, Denver Broncos family, is that Engram tried to return to the game. You but know how it is when a veteran player like him tries to force a return? It's because he knows his importance to the team. But we also know that forcing an injury can turn something simple into something much more complicated. Now, let's talk about what this means for our Broncos. Engram wasn't signed just to be another tight end on the roster. He was brought in to be that missing piece in our offense, that reliable guy who can create separation on intermediate routes, who can be a safe option on third down, who can open space for our receivers to work better. At 31 years old, and with a solid NFL career, Engram came to Denver bringing experience and leadership. He's already shown on other teams that he can be a playmaker, a guy who can make a difference in decisive moments. That's why this injury is worrying us so much. So, Broncos country, do you think this injury could affect our plans for the season? Comment below what you're feeling about this situation. Now, let's analyze the technical side of things. Calf injuries can be tricky, folks. Depending on the severity, a player can be out for a few weeks or even longer. The problem is that the calf muscle is fundamental for explosion, for cuts, for everything a tight end needs to do on the field. If Engram is out for a few weeks, our offensive coordinator will need to adjust the game plan. We have other tight ends on the roster, of course, but none with the experience and skill set that Engram brings. This could mean more responsibility for our receivers, changes in formations, maybe even a different approach in the red zone. But look, Broncos country, we can't panic. Remember that we're an organization that always finds a way to adapt. Sean Payton isn't a coach by accident. He knows how to work with adversity, how to maximize the potential of available players. The good news is that our victory against the Titans showed we have depth in the roster. Other tight ends entered the game and contributed. Our receivers showed they can carry the weight of the offense when necessary. Our offensive line protected well, giving the quarterback options to work with. Talk to me, family. Do you trust that our roster has enough depth to overcome this possible absence of Engram? Now, let's talk about the next steps. The Broncos medical team will do all necessary exams to determine the severity of the injury. MRI, complete evaluation, everything needed to have an accurate diagnosis. Because there's no point speculating, We need to know exactly what we're facing. If it's something simple, a mild strain, maybe Engram could be available for week 2. But if it's something more serious, we'll have to be patient and wait for him to recover completely, because forcing an early return can turn 2 weeks of recovery into 2 months of injury. The timing of this injury is particularly frustrating. We're at the beginning of the season, when everyone is eager to see how the new pieces will fit together. Engram was starting to develop chemistry with our quarterback, was understanding the offensive system, and now this forced pause can interrupt that process. But you know what I always say here on the channel. Football is a sport of constant adaptation. Teams that win championships are those that can overcome adversity, that find solutions when original plans don't work. If you're true Broncos country, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any play, because here you stay on top of everything that happens with our beloved team. Let's also think about the psychological impact of all this. Engram came to Denver wanting to prove he still has a lot of football left to play. At 31 years old, he knows every season is precious. Every opportunity is important. An injury right in the first game can mess with any player's head. But knowing the veteran profile he has, I bet Engram will use this adversity as extra motivation. Experienced guys like him have been through difficult situations in their careers, know how to deal with setbacks, know that injuries are part of the game. What makes me optimistic is that our medical staff is first class. The Denver Broncos have always invested heavily in sports medicine, in recovery technology, in everything that can accelerate the return of injured players. If anyone can help Engram come back quickly and in full condition, it's our professionals. Besides Broncos country, we can't forget that football is a team sport. One player can make a difference, but it's the group that wins games. Our offense has other weapons, other options that can shine while Engram recovers. What do you think, family? Could this be an opportunity for other players to show their value? Thinking about fantasy football, which I know many of you play, the situation with Engram is making everyone nervous. He was an interesting option at the tight end position with potential for consistent numbers in Sean Payton's offense. Now, whoever drafted him is wondering whether to hold on or look for alternatives on the waiver wire. My tip for fantasy players: wait for more information before making drastic decisions. If it's a minor injury, Engram could return soon and be a bargain for those who had patience. If it's something more serious, then it's worth exploring other options. But what's really important, Broncos country, is to hope our player recovers well and comes back even stronger. Because in the end, fantasy is fun, but the health of athletes is what really matters. Let's also analyze how this situation can affect our offensive strategy in the coming weeks. Sean Payton is known for his creativity, for his ability to adapt schemes to the characteristics of available players. If Engram is out, we might see more formations with extra receivers, more utilization of running backs as pass catchers, maybe even some tricks that Payton has saved up his sleeve. Denver Broncos family, are you curious to see how Sean Payton will adjust the offense if Engram isn't available? One thing that impresses me about the NFL is how quickly things can change. A player is there, performing well, contributing to victory, and suddenly an injury changes the entire scenario. That's why roster depth is so important. That's why teams that win titles are those that can maintain their level, even with important players out. The Denver Broncos have always been an organization that values this depth. Our front office always works to have options at all positions, to not depend too much on just one player. Of course, some athletes are irreplaceable, but the idea is always to have a plan B, a plan C, as many plans as necessary. And speaking of alternative plans, our other tight ends will have a golden opportunity if Engram needs to be out for a few weeks. That's how careers are made in the NFL, taking advantage of opportunities when they appear. Some young player might surprise, some veteran might show. He still has a lot to offer. Broncos country, Do you remember any time when a player got hurt and another showed up to shine in his place? These situations always create incredible turnarounds. What also catches my attention is how Broncos fans are reacting to this news. On social media, in forums, everyone is discussing, analyzing, hoping it's something temporary. This shows how much our fan base cares about every detail of the team, how much you're engaged with everything that happens. This passion is what makes the difference, folks. That's what transforms a group of athletes into a true family. When players feel this affection, this genuine concern from fans, it becomes extra motivation to recover quickly, to come back even better. Engram, if you're watching this, and I know NFL players always keep an eye on what fans are saying, know that all of Broncos country is rooting for your recovery. We don't want you to force anything. We want you to come back when you're 100%, but know that we're here, cheering, waiting for you to shine in our jersey. Now, let's be realistic about the next games. If Engram really needs to be out for a few weeks, our offense will have to adjust. But look, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes these forced adaptations end up revealing aspects of the attack we never imagined, end up creating combinations that work better than the original plan. And you, family? Are you confident that our Broncos will know how to adapt? Leave in the comments which player you think could stand out if Engram is out. The truth is that injuries are an inevitable part of football. Every team, every season will face situations like this. What separates mediocre teams from championship teams is precisely how they deal with these adversities. Championship teams find solutions, adapt, discover unexpected heroes, and I'm sure the Denver Broncos are prepared for this. Our coaching staff is experienced, our roster has quality, our organization has resources to deal with any situation. If we need to play without Engram for a few weeks, we'll play and compete at the same level. Of course, we prefer to have all our best players available. Of course, a healthy Engram makes our offense more complete, more dangerous. But if he needs time to recover, we'll give that time and find other ways to win. Broncos country, remember, great teams are tested by moments like this. That's how we discover what we're really made of. Another important point is that we're still very early in the season. If this injury had happened in December, with playoffs approaching, it would be a much more desperate situation. But we're in September, we have time for adjustments, time for other players to develop, time for Engram to recover completely. This could even be a blessing in disguise. Sometimes a player comes back from an injury stronger, more determined, with an even better understanding of the offensive system. Sometimes this recovery time ends up being used to study more film, to better understand the nuances of the attack. And we can't forget that Sean Payton has already worked with many different tight ends throughout his career. He knows how to maximize each one's potential, how to adapt the system to the specific characteristics of available players. If anyone can get the best out of our backup tight ends, it's him, Denver Broncos family. Do you trust Sean Payton's work? I'm sure he'll find creative solutions. Let's wait for the next news about the medical exams, about Engram's status for Week 2. But regardless of the result, one thing is certain. Broncos country will be there, supporting, cheering, making noise at Mile High Stadium, because that's what makes us a special family. In good times, we're there celebrating. In difficult times, we're there supporting. Engram will feel this affection, will know he has an entire fan base rooting for his recovery, and when he comes back, because he will come back, it will be even more special. It will be that moment when all of Broncos country will explode with joy. It will be that play we'll remember forever. Meanwhile, let's continue supporting our team. Let's continue believing in the potential of this season. One injury doesn't define an entire season, much less an injury in the first game. We have a lot of football ahead, many opportunities to show our strength. So, Broncos country, what would you do if you were Sean Payton in this situation? How would you adjust the offense? Comment below your ideas, and don't forget to leave a like. If you enjoyed the analysis, share with friends from the Denver Broncos family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any news about our beloved team. Until the next video, and remember, whatever happens, we are Broncos country and will always be together. Mile high, here we go! Go Broncos!